Well, welcome back. Welcome back to part 3. We're working with Molly, but this time we're going to look at the significance of a numerical analysis. All right? Modeling with Molly. Part 3, and what will you need? You will need the recapitulation record that we have provided for you. It's right here. You should have that right at your fingertips. All right? Now the question is, why? We'll tell you why. We're going to work together. We're going to analyze these numbers and try to... What's the good of getting a lot of numbers if you don't know what the numbers can imply for instruction? So that means you're going to be taking some notes on that recapitulation record that you have right on your desk as you work with this PowerPoint. Why? Again, we make commitments in terms of the standards that our graduates meet, so we will be able to demonstrate that you've earned the competencies that we claim we help you develop. So we're ready now to learn about the numerical analysis using Molly. So I'm going to come down here because I'm going to direct my attention first to the word list, and I'm also going to attend to contextual reading. Because keep in mind, we have word lists which are isolated and contextual reading. So with that in mind, we're coming down here. Please note that Molly was strong with both flash and untimed at the 3rd grade. However, starting at her own current grade level, she's starting to have some difficulties with word recognition. So that becomes a flag and a question mark, because then we ask, does this follow through to context? Now, the minute we get here at the RAI and the MMI, notice we're looking at scores of 99 and 100 and 99 and 99. So even while Molly had difficulties with recognizing isolated words, she didn't have those same difficulties when it came to context. So, when it comes to word recognition, are we ready to jot some notes down? We need to be sure that we avoid an isolated format for instruction. And in order to do that, the best thing you could use is the analytical approach. And in the analytical approach, what happens is you elicit known words or phrases that fit a pattern that you need to teach her, such as multisyllabic words. She discovers the pattern by looking at the word she knows. Then she's given an unknown word, and she now applies it. So that's keeping in the contextual framework of meaning making, in that you're using words from a story that she's discussed and is familiar with. So our first level of the first implication of those numbers pertains to word recognition. All right, now we're going to move on to comprehension. Okay? And this time we're going to look at the difference between oral and silent. And notice I've highlighted just levels 3 and 4. And the reason is that when we look at level 5 with her average of 40 of a comprehension and severe problems with word recognition and isolation, even though she's still continued strong in the contextual reading, it's not wise to make decisions based on someone's instruction. So we're going to deal primarily with the levels 3 and 4. And let me point out here, I would have no difficulty treating third grade as if this were her independent level. And the reason is that she is so solid here when it comes to both text-based and critical thinking. She was able to have 5 of 6 higher level questions responded correctly. So I think since she's so much more comfortable with silent reading than she is with oral reading, we will look more and closely at the silent reading numbers and say, all right, I'm comfortable with letting her have an independent level of third grade. And as you will see, we put her independent level third grade. All right, moving on. Because we've seen a pattern where we have for the oral higher, she had an 80 for after oral, but a 90 after silent. When she read at her current level, 55 following oral, but 90 following silent reading. So here we're having somebody shout out to us, I do much, much better following silent reading. We can assume here she knows that you read for meaning. And one of the sad things is that Molly, at the time of testing, was in a class where the teacher relied heavily on oral reading, which was not tapping into Molly's strength. All right, so our next implication is for instruction, and keep in mind we're talking about for the instructional level, read silently first. Use oral rereading after the discussion. So she has purposeful oral rereading, but that follows the initial silent reading. All right. And again, folks, we are using the works of Russell Stauffer in his DRTA. All right, so we looked at overall word recognition and we looked at instructional reading. Now we're going to come over and we're going to start looking at question types. All right, notice we've highlighted just the 3rd and 4th grades. And we've even totaled them. Notice here, Molly was asked 8 text-based questions for 3rd and 4th level. She was 100%. So if Molly's in a class where the emphasis is on text, no one's going to see that she has some needs. Now, when she read silently, she was successful, text-based, with 7 of 8. So she still has a solid ability to respond to text. All right? Let's move to inferences, folks. Because inferences, Molly was asked 6 inference questions. Guess what? She was successful with only 3 of 6 questions following oral reading, which is 50%. But now we're going to add something else to Molly's picture. Molly's teacher relied primarily on text-based. She was under the assumption that would better prepare her class for the testing. So Molly didn't have the chance to show that as much as an inference that she may need when she's using oral reading. But there's a nicer picture to this. What about silent reading? She was asked 6 inference questions. And guess what? She responded successfully, so she has earned a score of 100% on higher level inferences after silent reading. So that lessens our concern here, and it's reinforced with the suggestion we have down here, letter of instruction, have silent reading first. All right, we're ready now to move to the critical response. Following oral reading, Molly was successful with 2.5 of 6, or a percentage of 42. Again, that teacher in the daily work wouldn't have found this out because she primarily used text-based. But notice here, after silent, Molly was successful with 5 of 6 for a score of 83%. So it reinforces our position for Molly that Molly would benefit tremendously when it comes to silent reading for her instruction at her instructional level. Now, before we end, I want to just point out one thing. Is there a possibility that Molly's impacted negatively when she's reading something that is not of interest to her? Is that what happened here with this unbelievably uncharacteristic score of 55% on comprehension when it was followed by a 90% comprehension following oral? If that's the case, then we need to be sure that Molly is provided with information, with rather texts that don't always interest her. That's the reality of life. And so what will help Molly, especially in the area of critical thinking, right here. Here's where we had the difficulties, right? So, with critical response 0.5 and inference 1. If we have purpose setting that deals with a theme that Molly is to detect as evidenced in the text. So if she reads with a theme in mind, that enhances her chance to use the higher level critical thinking skills that she does have. She has them. I will tell you, it would be exciting to work with Molly. Great, great, great potential. Okay? Well, did you take your notes? Be sure that you've jotted down your ideas and your questions, and be sure then that you're comfortable seeing what you do with the numerical data that we get from the critical reading inventory and show with the recapitulation record. Now we are finished modeling with Molly. So, for now, we say goodbye.